Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. It's Thursday, June 26th, 2025. I'm your host, George, joined by not only Cody Roadcap. How sunburned did you get last week?
If you're watching on YouTube, you can see I did pretty good. Could be because of flight delays making us miss out a day and all that drama. Maybe that saved my skin. But yeah, looking forward to burn this week as we're going through a massive heat wave here in Pennsylvania.
Massive heat wave and coming in hot today with our first mock draft of this season. We did the other one way too early. I don't even count it.
Yeah. First legit mock draft. Rankings have started to be updated. Other people are mock drafting. It's the slow time in the NFL season. So what else to do than start thinking about our fantasy teams and how we're going to do this upcoming year?
Definitely looking forward to talking with you. If you're watching on Spotify or YouTube or Facebook, you can see previously recorded. If you're watching us live, Cody will be hanging around. Maybe he'll find some comments. If you guys drop some in the comments, and we will talk with you guys. If not, make sure you're following us at the Couch GMs, Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok to get even more than you do from the show, or to drop us a DM to ask us the questions you got going on heading into fantasy season. Quick programming note as well before we jump into our mock draft. Cody and I will be taking a bye week next week, enjoying the 4th of July, enjoying a little bit of the downtime before we jump right into the meat of the NFL season, starting with training camps.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. Hopefully you guys have a good 4th of July. But if you didn't know by the show title and George's intro already, we're mock drafting. George, you ready to get into that?
I am ready to get into that.
Perfect. So let's get into the mock draft. No fancy bumper today as we are just getting right into it. George, why don't you break it down, what we're doing, the spots, rosters, all that good stuff.
All right. So we're normally 10 teamers here. We're going 12 teams in 12 rounds in this mock draft. We're not worrying about backers or defenses. They should be taken in your last 2 rounds anyway. Not too worried about mocking it or trying to project those positions out at this point. We're looking at a roster of 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and 1 flex. Flex can be wide receiver, running back, or tight end. Doing a Half-PPR draft today. Good little balance between your standard and full PPR if you're interested in trying to see where people will fall in either of those.
Definitely. And one last thing worth noting is I random generated the 5th pick. George random generated the 3rd pick. So that is where we are drafting. And I don't know about you. This is the first mock draft I've done. I have not done any prep work, any mock drafts previously.
You've done plenty of prep work the last few weeks when we did some of our episodes on who to draft, who not to draft. Our guys.
But I'm saying, like, the actual draft process. First one live for the fans.
It's true. I have not done a physical mock draft either, but it's going to be fun to see how the ball falls on the fly.
Absolutely. So if we have everything set up, this is also a good reminder to head over to YouTube, Spotify, Facebook to watch the video. The big board and the players best available should be on the screen. I have to turn off the music and the sound effects because Sleeper is not a sponsor and I do not want to get sued by them, although I do appreciate their nice mock draft platform.
Could be a sponsor.
Could be.
All right.
George, on the clock. Pick 3.
On the clock. And interesting enough, 101 was not the 2 guys we debated last episode. Justin Jefferson in this mock. And then 102 goes Jamar Chase. So I feel like I'm left with only one option, and that's Saquon Barkley, right?
I mean, that's for me, but I do think it's interesting to see Justin Jefferson's reemergence near the top. I mean, Last year when his quarterback was Sam Darnold, you saw him fall all the way to pick 7, pick 8 in leagues, and now they go to a J.J. McCarthy. I think that just goes to show how good of a player Justin Jefferson is, but it's not like he has a proven quarterback this year either, which is the reason he fell. So I'm intrigued by the Justin Jefferson, but I totally get why you're going to go Saquon in this instance.
Yeah, I think it's good just to mention with Jefferson, we talked about how like Bijan was sneaking into the top 3, potentially top 2 on a lot of draft boards. Jefferson's currently projected at number 3 in Sleeper, and obviously there's a little bit of random when he comes into making these mock drafts. That's why he ends up on 1 here. I'm going Saquon. and Team 4's taking Bijan. And I'm sure that's not what you were hoping was going to happen, Cody, because you're on the clock.
Yeah, and honestly, we talked about this last week, finding your tier break. And depending on how you feel about the guy who I'm going to take, but you got to wait just a couple more seconds to figure that out. I think right here, 4 or 5 is kind of that tier block. So if you're in a league where you get to pick your position or figure that out based on that, those top 4, you feel pretty good about them. I think there is a 5th guy in that list, but that would probably be, an end of a tier break, so to speak. But I understand why a lot of people still like the later rounds in the draft. But I'm going to stick with the running back trend here and take running back Jahmyr Gibbs.
All right, I think that's a good move. I'm also interested that you put the Couch GMs in Team 9. So are we doing a dueling and a cumulative at the same time here?
I guess we are on the fly because
cool.
I must have auto-added that or for some reason, or I just accidentally clicked it.
Well, it's the first time we've done a dueling and a cumulative at the same time, so this is going to be an interesting exercise, but I like it.
Yeah, and I like that it's at the back end of the draft. So, you said, we're figuring this out on the fly. This is a good way to kick us up into the July 4th week. We're at pick 9 here. George, you had the first pick
quick
in round.
Recap here. Team 6 took CD Lamb, 7 took Amon-Ra St. Brown, and 8 took Puka Nacua, just for those listening and not watching.
Nope, I thank you for that. I was going to say, since this is also on the fly, we didn't determine who would get the final say. I'll say you got it. You had the first pick in the round, so we'll just go based on whoever. So you have the final say on this one. Top guys.
I have odds, you have evens.
Yep. You got Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins, Brian Thomas, Derrick Henry, and Brock Bowers at the top of your big board. Any of those names sticking out to you, or do you want to scroll even further?
No, I think probably they are. I love Derrick Henry, especially around this end of the first round on a 10-teamer. I think it's good we're doing 12 because I don't do a lot of 12-team mocks, and it's interesting to see how the board falls. He's somebody I'm thinking of, or I'm also thinking Nico Collins. You good with one of those two, or are you thinking elsewhere?
Yeah, I'm actually with you. I'm leaning Derrick Henry at this point. Just like looking at the board, knowing you're going to get to pick again in 7 picks. The wide receivers that are left, I like better than the next couple running backs. If you're looking further down the list of like Devon Achane, Ashton Genty. So I think even if you get like a Drake London paired with Derrick Henry, I like that pairing better than like a Nico Collins, Ashton Genty. So that's kind of why I would go with the Derrick Henry selection. But you get the final say. But I guess I have to make the pick because I have.
You have to make the pick, and we'll go Derrick Henry. That's all good.
Perfect. Oh, wrong screen. Now this is going to get really confusing because I have so many windows open.
But, all right, Derrick Henry went number 9. Nico Collins picked 10. Team 11 took Brian Thomas and ended the first round on the turn here. Devon Achane, Brock Bowers going at pick 13, first pick in the second round. Malik Neighbors and Ashton Genty back to us, and Cody has the final say. What are you thinking?
We debated this combination last week, and we are going to get both. And I love getting both here. Running backs early. Give me the flyer on Christian McCaffrey if you're cool with it.
I'm cool with it. I was happy to see that. Sleepers rankings are a little different than the consensus ADP rankings that we were using over the last few weeks. And I was thinking we wouldn't be able to pull this in 12, but we did.
Yeah, so we like this in a 10-teamer. We definitely like it in a 12-teamer. So Christian McCaffrey goes, followed by A.J. Brown, Bucky Irving, Drake London, and my team is back on the clock. Now, interesting name. If you've been listening the last couple of weeks, you could see a guy like Trey McBride up there, who I said I would take over Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers went a couple picks either, so the value is there. Jackson Smith and Jigba, a guy that we weren't a huge fan on. We could take the first quarterback in Josh Allen. Lad McConkey's here. But I took a running back early, so typically I don't like to go no wide receivers. But I'm not in love with any of the quote unquote names that are here, sitting here. I see Tyreek Hill there, and that one is tempting. I think that might be your pick if I was going to try to, play the games and sneak out Tyreek Hill over a guy like a Ladd McConkey. But I think at the end of the day, I'm going to go with Ladd McConkey here and just take the young guns offense approach, see if that breakout continues, being that reliable slot player for Justin Herbert.
Ladd McConkey's a good pick. I don't blame you there at all. Lamar Jackson went between us there to team 4.
I was hoping that I'd get him in the 3rd round. I'm not going to lie. That Lamar one stings a little bit because I almost pulled the trigger.
No, I was honestly thinking same thing with him or Allen because I was debating, do I take one of the 2 quarterbacks here, hope Tyreek Hill falls back through? And now that one of them's gone, it's kind of risky if I take Josh Allen. I still have risk Tyreek Hill coming back through. I don't know. This is a predicament too. You and I who don't take QBs at the beginning of the draft here are both thinking the same thing right now, which is strange. I'm going to hold off and just see if Allen falls back through. I'm going to take Tyreek Hill because I think I have a legitimate chance to get an RB1 wide receiver 1 if Hill stays healthy and Tua stays healthy, just because the upside's there.
Yeah, and I think too, as you go ahead and make your pick here, the reason we're thinking quarterbacks is because mock drafting isn't just about, putting together the best team you can on the mock draft, because that once this is over, the draft quote unquote means nothing. But you get to experiment. Like, what if I did take an early round quarterback? We like the quarterbacks later, but what happens? How does my team look? And those are the kinds of things you get to figure out as you made the pick here for Tyreek Hill at the end of round 2.
Exactly. So it's good to experiment just with a couple of draft strategies you don't think you like because you never know if you're going to like them. But I ended up not being able to have Josh Allen fall back through. He went to team 2 right after me, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba and Trey Bride were on the turn into round 3. Terry McLaurin also went before me. Back here in round 3, another guy that was sticking out to me that I was debating last round was Josh Jacobs. He's still here. I also like Jonathan Taylor. It's a little bit of a toss-up for me. I think Taylor actually has more upside. But I don't know. I'm on the fence with those 2.
I'm not going to be much help because I'm hoping one of those 2 gets back to me.
And a good chance they will, unless team 4 takes the other
and goes without a wide receiver. But yeah, I mean, Josh Jacobs had a really good year last year, but they missed 2.5 games of Jordan Love. And I mean, look at that first game with Malik Willis. They ran the ball 40 times. He got a lot of workload. He didn't get hurt. So knock on wood, he continues, but it was a lot of wear and tear on the body. They have their 3rd round pick from last year coming back in Marshawn Lloyd to kind of be a change of pace guy. And with a healthy Jordan Love, you would think they might try to throw the ball a little bit more. So I can see why you think the higher upside for Jonathan Taylor when he is going to be the quote unquote focal point of the offense, whether it is Richardson or Daniel Jones. I guess the counter argument is here on June 23rd, you have to think the Packers offense is going to be putting up more points on a regular basis. Are they going to be in the red zone more? Does that favor Josh Jacobs? So I don't think you can go wrong with either at this position. It's kind of more of a preference in my mind.
Yeah, and I'm going to take the chance on the offense being good and go with the workload and take Jonathan Taylor. And we'll see if you get to be a homer on the way back around here.
I don't. Great.
And you don't. Josh Jacobs goes to team 4. And now this is where a mock comes in because you have an idea where you want to go here, and now you can't. So where are you here at pick 5 in round 3?
Yeah, this one is tough for me. T. Higgins is at the top of the board. I really like T. Higgins. That's a high-powered offense. I could pair him with a Ladd McConkey if I wanted to. Jaden Daniels doesn't move the needle enough for me to take here in round 3. I'll take a quarterback later. Then it gets interesting. There's Kyren Williams is an interesting running back. If I wanted to keep this running back trend, the Rams always do good. I'm a big Chase Brown fan. And then I still really like the upsides of Breece Hall. And then the other guy that if I'm thinking wide receiver, it's like old reliable Mike Evans or the young gun in Marvin Harrison Jr. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention my guy, Davante Adams, down here at pick 39, because there's probably no way he gets back to me all the way. That's just too many picks for
Long
where
way
we're
in a
at.
12-team league, yeah.
Yeah. But I talked about I like him a lot, and we debated him versus Marvin Harrison last week. But I'm going to go back to the running back well, and I'm really torn between taking the super high upside of Breece Hall or Kyren Williams, and I think I'm ultimately just going to go with Kyren Williams.
I would have agreed going Kyren Williams there. And I think the other thing to note is when you look past this tier, there's plenty of wide receivers around that I think you can get upside from, but running backs, the drop off is much more significant. So I really like being able to at least get my second running back this tier.
No, I agree. And then have that third flexible guy that can spot start in bye weeks and, be a solid piece. But after my pick went T. Higgins, followed by Garrett Wilson, and then Jaden Daniels went to team 8 in the third round. And then at 3-9 is our cumulative pick as the Couch GMs. We have 2 running backs, so I think we can cross off Chase Brown or Breece Hall from this list. That leaves us with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Mike Evans as the top wide receivers, along with Davante Adams just a little bit down the list, unless you want to go crazy and start looking at quarterback.
I think after taking 2 running backs, we're smarter to take a wide receiver here. And I know you would make an argument for Adams. And I'm just trying to think here of like, do we think there's a realistic chance Adams falls to 4-4?
I don't think so. I mean, just looking at the teams, Team 12 doesn't have a wide receiver. Team 10 only has one.
11
has one. Both. So just, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we get like that early quarterback run, or they take the running backs and Davante falls. And if you're willing to risk that and take a guy like a more solid guy that is going to get 1,000 yards and a Mike Evans, or if you feel confident in our running backs and want to take the flyer on a potential breakout from Marvin Harrison, I wouldn't mind those picks. I am in agreement though we should go wide receiver.
Yeah, so my thought was if we're confident Adams is going to fall through to round 4 and we want to go wide receiver double here, which is a bad move, we take Marvin Harrison. If we want to be safe in case he doesn't fall through, we take Mike Evans. No, we're getting a steady guy as wide receiver. I still don't think we're hurt if we have Evans Adams.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
decide there more with Harrison.
Let's go for it. We have the running backs studs that we like. Let's take the flyer on the upslide in Marvin Harrison. I don't want to make your pick for you because it is your turn to pick.
Yeah, no, I'm good with that.
All right, so we're gonna go Marvin Harrison here and see how the board falls. Play a little bit of gamble, bet it all on black, however you want to describe this.
All right, after Harrison, Chase Brown, and then Mike Evans, end of the run on the Breece Hall and Rashee Rice, James Cook, and George Kittle. Cody, you still get to have your pick of Davante Adams if you want it.
Yep, and we're going to take that. But I do want to point out that the Rashee Rice got up into that conversation. And he's a guy that I think is worth the value of where he was drafted if we get some, resolution on what might happen with the legal situation from last offseason. But if that wasn't a part of the conversation, I think where he went is good. But let's take Davante Adams here. Man, I'm really liking this Couch GMs team even a little bit better than my team. But after Davante went DJ Moore, Alvin Kamara, Jalen Hurts, and puts me back on the clock here. Jahmyr Gibbs, Ladd McConkey, Kyren Williams. I'm on the clock here. And it's tough out there. It really is with the options that are currently sitting me in the face with the big board. Joe Burrow is the best quarterback available. I don't think George is going to go quarterback. Team 1 would be the only other team that doesn't have a quarterback till it gets back to me. So maybe George will steal him since I said that, but I'm going to pass on Joe Burrow. The Joe Mixon one would be interesting, but I'm not feeling another running back here. I would love to get a wide receiver. So I'm looking at like Cortland Sutton, DK Metcalf, Zay Flowers, Devonta Smith, like that range of guys. And it's really like preference for me. Sutton has been reliable without a quarterback. He kind of got one in Bo Nix and became a really good piece. I think that would be a nice addition there. Or do you want DK Metcalf with Aaron Rodgers? It's a coin flip for me. Zay Flowers is also up there. He has his big moments, his big games. It also has his no-show week, so it's a high variance pick, which I don't mind as my
everyone
wide
this
receiver.
year is kind of a high variance pick.
I'm gonna go with Cortland. I said his name. I'll go with it. It was really tough between Cortland Sutton and DK Metcalf for me. Just trying to think of like the other weapons that are there. But I'll go Cortland Sutton with my pick. Then Joe Mixon goes, and you're on the clock.
I think again here, my favorite guys on the board are probably running backs. I don't want to take a third yet. I might think about taking a third around in round 5. So now here, round 4, I have Saquon, Tyreek Hill, Jonathan Taylor. I'm not thinking Joe Burrow. Excuse me. Again, he would be in consideration maybe round 5, but I don't want to take him sooner than that. If I was looking at it not positionally, I think either Ken Walker or Chuba Hubbard, but I'm thinking I should take a second wide receiver. I don't think I'm as big on DK Metcalf as you were. Zay Flowers is in the conversation, and I'm counting out Devontae Smith because I already have Saquon Barkley, and I don't want too many assets on one team unless a quarterback stack, but Hurts is gone. So I'm leaning Zay Flowers here, hoping that Tyreek Hill can kind of be the more consistent guy he had been in the past, even though he does have some variance. And then I take Zay Flowers, who is a little bit more boom or bust, but end up having Hill and Flowers go off on the same week. It's going to be hard to beat me.
Yeah, I think you could throw Taylor in that mix as well as like the high variance players. So you have your like stable force with Saquon, and then you'll have these 3 guys that you don't need them to hit each week. You just need one of them to hit.
I need one to hit, and if 2 hits, I'm doing well.
Right. So I like that strategy of taking Zay Flowers there for you.
Cool. After Zay Flowers, we got TJ Hawkinson. Omarion Hampton rounds out round 4. Burrow goes 5-1, and Ken Walker back to me. Hubbard still here. I can think about taking that third running back. DK, Devontae Smith, Sam Laporta, and James Conner, the top of the board. I'm just going to stick with what I said because I did have one of the guys I liked fall back through, and I'm going to go Chuba Hubbard.
All right, go ahead, take Chuba Hubbard. DK Metcalf goes next, which puts me on the clock here. Devonta Smith is up there in consideration. Sam Laporta, if I wanted to go tight end, but like George, I already have Jahmyr Gibbs, so I'm not going to double up quite yet on the offense. Joe Burrow did go at the beginning of this round, so that probably takes me out of the quarterback conversation until we get much lower in the draft. I would think those are the 5 quarterbacks that have been selected that I would try to target early if I was going to take one, but I'm going to pass from now. I'm not going to take David Montgomery, even though that was a successful strategy last year to just have both. I'm not going to roll with that again. So for me here, I took kind of like a safer guy in Cortland Sutton last pick. Now I'm going to take a high variance guy, and he's a little bit lower on the board. George probably isn't going to like this pick. Maybe it's his name, maybe it's not. But I'm going to reach a little bit here, but it's a guy I think could have a big season, and that is George Pickens. So again, a little bit higher than ADP, but I don't think it's too far of a reach for me to take. And I'm going to go with George Pickens on that one.
I was interested where you're going to go there. That's a little further down than I thought you were going to go, but not bad.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I passed on Chris Olave, passed on Jalen Waddle, passed on Devonta Smith, 3 guys that had a higher rank than him according to Sleeper. You were about to mention Devonta Smith went right next, followed by Baker Mayfield. Xavier Worthy was a guy that was just a tick below George Pickens as well. And then now the Couch GM's team is back on the clock.
All right. Odd number round. I'm the final say here. I would think about Sam Laporta, but I almost like letting him slide because two of the teams around there on this turn already have a tight end, and we would just be taking the chance of Team 11 taking him.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
So then we're sitting here 2 with Henry McCaffrey and then Harrison Adams. We can go pretty much anywhere else. I don't know how much you like taking Mahomes in round 5. I'm not really a big fan. So is it Connor Montgomery or is it one of those 3 receivers, the Olave, Waddle, and Jameson?
I think I would kind of lean running back here, just because you have the high upside in Christian McCaffrey, but you also have the injury concerns. So my, flexible guy potentially taking him would be one of the 2 running backs. Now, that does put us in an interesting predicament because I would assume James Conner is off the list because we took Marvin Harrison Jr., which leads us with David Montgomery. But if our ultimate plan is to get Laporta in the next round, does that make you consider not taking Montgomery at all, knowing that now we're going to wait till round 7 to get our next running back?
Yeah, that's tough. So maybe we don't think Laporta with the situation we put ourselves in. And then
I think I feel better taking Montgomery and letting Laporta go and going with a different tight end.
Yeah, I agree with that because there's still going to be more tight ends coming up in the later part of the draft that have the upside. So I'm cool with letting Laporta go too, and I'm cool with taking David Montgomery, taking the touchdown upside. I still think there's going to be a split that's pretty favorable. It's not going to be 50-50 anymore. I don't see it, but if he gets a 60-40 or 70-30, I think he's still going to make a lot out of it knowing he has a lot of touchdown potential.
Well, and too, like even if he does, 70% of Jahmyr Gibbs' output for a guy that you get 4 rounds later, like I think the value is good for David Montgomery.
I agree. After Montgomery, we had Jalen Waddle. Sam Laporta would not made it back around anyway. James Conner and Chris Olave on the turn. RJ Harvey and Jameson Williams. Back to Cody at 4. I guess it's technically both of us, but Cody has the final say here.
Yeah, and this is where it gets really interesting. The next tight end available is Travis Kelce, how the mighty have fallen. I'm not going that far down the board, but that's just who the next tight end available is. Patrick Mahomes.
The next quarterback available is Patrick Mahomes, how the mighty have fallen.
But again, like at this point in the draft, 2 teams haven't taken a quarterback. So I don't see a need to go up and get Patrick Mahomes. Chris Godwin, we talked all about his question marks and not a big fan of him. Isaiah Pacheco, Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones. I think Aaron Jones could be an interesting name if we wanted to, just protect ourselves at the running back position. But because we're basically drafting our bench spots now, minus the quarterback and tight end, because we know we're going to wait for them. So this is a tough, interesting spot here. For me, really, it's like which guy do you think has the higher upside? And I'm leaning towards one of the Minnesota Vikings players, whether that's Jordan Addison to get a third wide receiver to remain balanced, or just because of the injury concerns with a McCaffrey, if we wanted to get one extra running back in Aaron Jones. But what are your kind of thoughts on this?
Since we have the third running back and we're confident Montgomery could slot in if needed, and the fact that we have the 2 receivers, I kind of like going Godwin here, knowing you're going to have to wait on him. But what are the odds with those 5 that we're going to need him until week 4 or 5 at least? But I don't going Addison here either. I think it's a little bit of a safer play. Loading up 4 running backs and taking Aaron Jones almost feels like a strategy that, that's a bad idea, but it's either basically handcuffing us in case Montgomery doesn't live up to the expectations this year, or you're just doing it looking to trade some at the deadline.
So you like Godwin over Addison?
Over Addison, but I'm fine with Addison, thinking it's a little bit of a safer pick than Godwin.
Okay. That's Interesting. I'm going to go Addison. I think the upside
Okay.
is there. I get the final say. He's the number
Let me
2.
say, I don't know if I really like Godwin over Addison overall, but I think in our situation, thinking I have problems starting Harrison and Adams every week, we could have taken the risk if you wanted to.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think the upside as the wide receiver 2. I know Chris Godwin on paper is the wide receiver 2, but because they come off an injury, they drafted a first round wide receiver. They also had McMillan break out last year. Like I don't know if he'll even get as many targets as a guy like Jordan Addison, although Baker Mayfield does like to throw the ball around. So we'll have to see how that one plays out. Godwin went right next at pick 5 in round 6 to team 8. Travis Kelce followed, then Isaiah Pacheco, and I am now back on the clock here. And I'll keep this one pretty short. I mentioned him at pick 8 between Addison and Aaron Jones. I only have 2 running backs here. I have 3 wide receivers. I'm going to keep myself balanced and go ahead and take Aaron Jones with this pick.
Not a bad move. Jerry Jeudy went between. Now we're back to here. I was really hoping Travis Kelce was going to fall, knowing that team 1 and 2 they already took a tight end. And I was going to see if I could really pull off a Mahomes Kelce stack at round 6 and 7. When normally you used to have to take that in rounds, 1 and 3? That would have been crazy.
Yeah. If not 1 and 2.
But if not 1 and 2, exactly. But all right. This is tough because part of me is like, I don't really want to take the quarterback, but the value of Mahomes in round 6 is fantastic. That being said, because I said, team 2 has Allen, team 1 has Burrow. I think if he's still there in round 7, I'll just play my hand. I'm going to take Mahomes. Other than that, though, like, there's not a whole lot here that I love. I want to know, what is your thoughts in redrafts on Travis Hunter? Knowing that he's going to be splitting time, I don't think he's going to be getting full wide receiver snaps. Is that going to hurt his, production value, especially if you're in a league that you don't get, points for tackles?
Yeah, I think I would stay away from Travis Hunter in redrafts until we see
Especially
what
this
his
team's
split is.
rich.
Yeah. Like I said, if it's Dynasty, I'm all for it because you get at least something. If you're in IDP Dynasty, they have Brian Thomas Jr. as like the number 1, so he's already going to be a number 2 wide receiver. So we took like a Jordan Addison this round. Devonta Smith went around earlier. George Pickens went around earlier. Like those high-end number 2 guys that are behind studs, guys that all went in the first round. So I guess AJ Brown went in the second round, but you get my point. So for me, Travis Hunter is too rich for that. I'd let someone else take him. Maybe 2 rounds later, if he's still there, I would be intrigued. But until I know for sure he's full-time wide receiver and not full-time cornerback to get some offensive snaps, I would stay away.
All right, so we're on the same page there. The only other position I was looking at here is tight end. I do not like Manu Smith here, just knowing the uncertainty of, I don't know if he's going to be in Miami on opening day. I have to mention my guy Mark Andrews sitting down there, but I feel like I'm on the wrong end of the trade board to really make a reach on that one. So someone to keep an eye on if I go back around to round 8, or maybe in round 7 if Mahomes happens to go on these other 2 teams. But I think my guy here is going to be Tet McMillan. I think I want to get another wide receiver in-house, knowing that I have Hill and Flowers, who are kind of, high variance. At least it gives me another shot on a high variance rookie. And I'm just hoping at this point, even though my team is a little bit, boom or bust, I just need some of these guys to hit. I don't need all of them to hit. So just keep giving myself some solid upside darts to throw.
I'm surprised knowing you took Chuba last round, but I get what you're saying with taking a flyer on a top 10 pick at wide receiver.
We're getting at the point in the draft now where it's like, I don't love taking 2 assets on the same offense, especially when you say it's the Panthers, but the upside, I think, on him is higher than a lot of the below, unless you really love Tyrone Tracy, I guess. He's the only other name that really sticks out to me. And I already have 3 running backs, so those running backs down there kind of get pushed down a little.
Yeah, go for it. Tet McMillan it is.
Running back run afterwards, Tyrone Tracy. The turns, Tony Pollard and Najee Harris. And then Quid Judkins goes back to me. I already said it. If he's still here, I'm going to take it. Round 7 value, Patrick Mahomes.
All right, so Travis Hunter goes next, and then I am on the clock here. And this is definitely an interesting spot to be in for sure. Georgia's guy, Mark Andrews, is on the list. If I wanted to go in that direction, I could. There is Trayvon Henderson is a running back that I like if I want to take a rookie flyer to pair with anybody else. I was looking at Tony Pollard, but he did not come to fruition. Guy I've mentioned before in Brian Robinson is a little bit lower down the list. But I think George has talked enough about it. I'm going to take Mark Andrews here. Tight end typically earlier than I like, but just a guy that continuously to show up here. And there's not a guy that's screaming out to me at a position. So let me try to get the last of a tier in Mark Andrews.
I like it. So after that, team 6 took Rome Dunze, Travion Henderson next, and Jonnu Smith goes before our GM's lineup here. Like where we're at with 3 and 3, but do we start looking at other positions, or are we going to keep filling the bench?
I mean, there's 3 here. If, I guess we'll start with this. If we look at the quarterbacks, currently the next ones available are Jared Goff, Bo Nix, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love. Those are your next 5, all ranging from rank 85 to 104. So plenty of, not saying we have to take any of them right now. And then tight ends, it's Evan Ingram, David Njoku, Tyler Warren, Dalton Kincaid, Jake Ferguson, Tucker Kraft, Dallas Goedert. The list goes on and on. Honestly, at this point, though, tight end for me is kind of out. At least that's what I'm thinking. So I'm back to kind of just best player available. So you might be looking at Jared Goff. I don't know if the value of Jared Goff versus the rest is worth taking in round 7.
Do you want to hear where I'm at on quarterback?
Yeah.
Waiting until the next round, looking at Kyler Murray to stack with Marvin Harrison.
You read my mind. That's why this is because I was going to mention that. Let's see if we can get a Kyler Murray in the next round and maybe take a flyer on a guy like Calvin Ridley now with Cam Ward. Is that high upside for him to potentially have a breakout season? Does DeAndre Swift, have a bounce back with Brian Robinson, or heck, even Deebo Samuel now in Washington with Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin having a contract dispute? I think those are all interesting options. Any of those stick out to you?
I feel like we just went safer with Jordan Addison and Montgomery being the touchdown guy. We were trying to be safe there. I don't like Swift's upside. I like Ridley's upside because he was a previous 1,000-yard receiver, now with a number 1 overall pick at quarterback. Brian Robinson, there's a lot of splitting going on there. I thought they would have ran the ball a lot more last year, and they didn't. I'm just kind of worried about his upside. I think I like Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, I also like Brandon Ayuk in this situation, but because we have CMC, I'm going to go Calvin Ridley here.
Calvin Ridley is a good pick in my mind. Oh, there's the quarterback run. Bo Nix, Jared Goff, Kyler Murray, all going after to end the round, coming back around to Brian Robinson, Jalen Warren, and Khalil Shakur. And best laid plans don't work out this time. We don't get Kyler Murray, but you're on block.
Yeah, we don't get Kyler Murray, but we could, if we wanted to, we could wait till the end and stack Matthew Stafford with Devontae Adams if we cared enough about our stack. Not saying we have to do that. But I believe I'm on the clock. Okay.
Yes.
I thought I made the Ridley pick, so I'm glad that I'm now on the clock too. We're just that much in sync here. So yeah, the tight ends, I'm not in love here. I mentioned Brandon Ayuk before. I don't think we're going to take it. So I have an old versus young guy situation. Do you like Cooper Kupp this late? Just see what could happen. with his new team, or do you think injuries have caught up to him enough where taking a flyer on Caleb Johnson, the rookie running back for the Steelers, might be worth something?
All right, so let me bring a third guy into this conversation because we actually just had this debate on our last episode. If you didn't listen, go back and check it out. Add in Stephon Diggs. I like Diggs better than both.
Do you like Diggs better than Debo?
Now that is a question.
I think Debo's the smart pick, but I feel like every time I have Debo, he doesn't do well. So like I always like fade him in my personal rankings. But I think as a smart pick, I feel like Debo might be the most sense here and pretty much cap out our wide receivers at 5. Debo Samuel being the worst of the lowest of those 5 guys.
And I think the problem with Debo has been he's been going so early in drafts and he hasn't lived to those expectations. But getting him at around 8 value, which I'm pretty sure he has never done before, is that there's a lot less up to. I think he's going to look better this year, even if he isn't actually doing that much better, because you don't have the expectation. I think it was the smart pick as well.
All right. I will make the pick on Debo, and we'll roll on. DeAndre Swift goes next. Stephon Diggs, Brandon Ayuk, and Cody is on the clock here. And, man, I'm still not loving this spot here. I don't know if I would typically take this guy. I'm not going to take this guy. I was going to take Justin Herbert, but I gandered down the rest of the draft board, and everyone has a quarterback. So unless someone doubles up, which is definitely a possibility, I'll get Justin Herbert in the 9th round.
To give you context, if you're just listening, the only other team that doesn't have a quarterback is the Couch GM's team. So
shocker.
Yeah.
Which leads me going back and forth between I have 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and a tight end here. And a guy we don't talk about a lot. He's sitting at the top of the draft board. Just Jacoby Myers is a name that I always overlook, but since Devontae left last year, he did become like the focal point on that offense. Maybe it's all the catches without a touchdown that he went through in New England that people still fade him. There's other guys like we talked about Cooper Kupp. If you want to take a flyer on him, the rookie Caleb Johnson, if you're not a big fan of Jaylen Warren, or you think he'll overcome. Jaden Reed is up there. Ricky Pearsall is a guy that has some potential high upside as well. But I think I'm going to go with the running backs here. And nope, I'm going to pivot right here, I think. Let me do some quick math, which is not working out for me. All right, I'm gonna go even lower on the board. I'm just gonna take a flyer. No, I'm gonna take Caleb. I think this is full tilt. So here, my thing is, it's only 6 spots in terms of rank, but Javonte Williams being the starting running back for the Dallas Cowboys, it was intriguing. But I also have George Pickens, and I don't want to buy too much. I can this late in the draft. But I'm going to go Caleb Johnson here. Take the rookie unknown and move on.
Myers next. He was the guy I was going to talk up and pick here.
Which was the sigh. So I heard that.
Yep. Yeah, there was a sigh there. So I'm going to question, do I finish out my running back room being as running back 4 Travis Etienne and for the bounce back isn't bad, especially when previously we were drafting him as running back 1, running back 2. He does have Tank Bigsby around there too, who I don't think has even gone yet. So no one really knows what's going to happen with the Jacksonville backfield. New coach there as well. What are your thoughts on that backfield, quick?
I like Bigsby over Etienne.
And Bigsby is going not until pick 124, which is interesting enough. ETN is that much higher, averaging pick 97 on Sleeper. Looking at wide receiver still, Cooper Kupp still up there, who you've been talking about. My boy pick for the Green Bay Packers wide receiver room. It seems like every year it didn't work out last year. Is Jaden Reed. He's still down here, and then Ricky Pearsall as well. But that San Francisco wide receiver room is going to be interesting, I think, this year. And then at tight end, Evan Ingram, David Njoku, Tyler Warren. I almost like waiting and taking the flyer on Tyler Warren more. The problem is I already have a tight end. I already have a running back from Indy. Don't really want to double up on teams again. This spot is just tough. But we're also looking at it. It's round 8. This guy's going on my bench unless it's tight end. The stakes are lower. You're just trying to find somebody who's going to hit.
Yeah, and I mean, based on like if you're out on Cooper Kupp, which is understandable with all the injuries he's dealt with, Sam Darnold as quarterback, him competing with JSN for time in the slot. But you mentioned it, your guy that you think is going to be the top guy at wide receiver would be Jaden Reed on the Packers offense. So that's a name that's intriguing and also goes with like your high variance team that you already have. So it'll be you might not have the best coaches score if you use NFL.com. Did you play the maximum lineup? Because some weeks your bench will go off. But he's a guy that could be an interesting name. And then I don't think you should overlook Ricky Pearsall either. You saw what he did the last couple weeks of the season, especially the last week of the fantasy season last year. He had that big breakout game on Monday Night Football. Brandon Ayuk coming off the ACL injury. They moved on from Deebo Samuel. So I think Pearsall has even higher upside than a guy like Jaden Reed, just maybe not quite the same floor.
Yeah, and I think Pearsall and Reed have very similar situations. Pearsall competing with Jawan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk when he's back, and Demarcus Robinson. And Reed obviously competing with Matthew Golden, Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks, Mecole Hardman. There's a lot of guys there in Green Bay as well. It's just trying to pick the right guy. I think you convinced me to go Ricky Pearsall, just try to take upside, because I think it could end up being a battle between Jawan Jennings and Brandon Ayuk. Ayuk obviously should get that because of the contract, but you don't know if he's going to be slowed for a while because of the injury. But it seemed like they really wanted to get Pearsall involved last year. So I'm going to hope that he keeps being involved this year.
No, I really like that pick as well. But after you went Zach Charbonnet, Cooper Kupp to round out round 8, Jaden Reed went round 9, and Travis Etienne, if you were trying to get him back on the turn, went 1 pick before you, and you are back on the clock.
All right. If I want to round out my running back room, there's only really 1, maybe 2 starters really left. Javonte Williams in Dallas, you got to think the ceiling's kind of low, but technically a starter. The other guys around here at running back, Ramondre Stevenson, I'm going to pass. I've never been a Ramondre Stevenson guy, and then they brought in Travion Henderson. Tajay Spears is intriguing, being the pass down guy in Tennessee, if you think that they're going to improve with the new quarterback. Rico Dowdle, if I was handcuffing Chuba Hubbard, but I'm not really in the business of doing that with my RB3. Rachaad White and Tank Bigsby. Interesting situation here.
Yeah, I like
Bigsby
too. I like Bigsby more than Rachaad White. I think Bucky Irvin completely passed Rachaad White. So that's I view him more as a handcuff situation than anything. Where Bigsby I think has a real shot at playtime.
Yep.
But it's round 9. If you wanted to, you have your choice here. It's a tough decision either way. But if you're asking me which one of those two, I would lean towards Tank Bigsby.
Yeah, I'm more debating Tank Bigsby, which it's okay to reach when you get down to round 9. Or if I try to take a starter in Javonte Williams and hope that he kind of resurrects his career. That's kind of more my guess.
I like that option. Honestly, I think I would go. I mean, I almost pivoted at Caleb Johnson to Javonte Williams 6 picks ago.
And that was 6 picks ago. So okay. So I think of running back room, Saquon, Jonathan Taylor, Chuba Hubbard, and Javonte Williams. I'm going to find somebody out of that. So that's good with me there. And then between us, Justin Herbert.
No
Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert to team 4, and Cody without a quarterback is on the clock.
Yeah, I don't have a quarterback. Now I'm not mad. There's still quarterbacks I like, but I wanted that stack option. You know, I could still get Dak Prescott, which is a guy that I like later in the draft to pair with George Pickens if I think he's going to be an everyday starter, but both of my top 2 guys are gone. I didn't even really look at the board because I was so locked in on Justin Herbert. So faulty move.
Convinced me to go Javonte Williams because he wasn't worried. He probably wasn't taking another running back anyway. But
no, there's a part of me that's like, okay, well, now I'm going to take Evan Ingram and trade Justin Herbert or for Mark Andrews and just call it a day. But I'm not going to do that because that's not how this draft works. Heck, if second quarterbacks are going to start to go in the sleeper system, I think I have to lean that direction.
Yep.
And
the long term coming for you here too.
You know what, Dak? I'm okay with the next 5 quarterbacks. I mean, I like obviously Jordan Love a lot. Brock Purdy, I'd be okay with starting. Caleb Williams, I think that's an intriguing one. CJ Stroud, Dak Prescott. I'm going to pass on quarterback. I'm still going to pass. And this is where I'm going to go back to the wide receiver well. I'm going to take, I'm looking here. Michael Pittman is still down here, a guy that we've taken much higher. Honestly, though, with the quarterback situation in Indy, it's very hard to tell. If Daniel Jones
I'd almost rather have Josh Downs than Michael Pittman, seeing upside with the fact that their quarterback situation is scary.
I don't really like either of them. There's the 2 Tampa guys, Keon Coleman at wide receiver as well. I could take the flyer on Matthew Golden if I wanted to double up at, rookies here. But let's not do that. I was almost going to talk myself into the homer pick, but I'm not. Because I'm going to talk myself into the ultimate. Nope, I'm not. I am so bad at this tilting. I've gone back and forth. Heck, what has happened to me? I'm thinking about taking another wide receiver. Let's do it. We're going to go Matthew Golden here.
That is only your wide receiver 4, which is late for you to only have 4 wide receivers. I'm impressed by this draft strategy out of you.
Did you see Team 4? If you're not watching, went running back, quarterback, 2 running backs, and then 4 straight wide receivers.
Well, Team 2 went 0 running back strategy and waited till round 5. We'll talk about that at the end. Those 2 drafts are interesting, honestly.
All right, so I took I went back-to-back rookies here, trying to find a breakout star in the middle rounds. Ramondre Stevenson went next. Evan Ingram, Tajay Spear, and the Couch GM's team is on the clock. It doesn't have a quarterback.
It doesn't have a tight end.
And it doesn't have a tight end either. Now, tight ends available. David Njoku, Tyler Warren, Dalton Kincaid, Jake Ferguson, Tucker Kraft, Dallas Goedert, Colson Loveland, Kyle Pitts, Pat Freiermuth. None of those names. And then quarterbacks, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, Caleb Williams, CJ Stroud, Dak, Drake May, Justin Fields, and the list goes on.
Okay, let's play the game, I guess, here, if you don't mind. How many? So I think you already answered this question. You're okay with the next 5 quarterbacks: Love, Purdy, Caleb, Stroud, Dak.
Yeah.
How many of the next tight ends are you okay with?
All of them. I mean, I don't really like any of them. Let's see. I would say that the tight ends that I like next, I feel like Njoku always performs, and I just cannot ever buy into him. So, I feel like he would be the end of a tier if that's kind of the direction that you're going at. Because for me, there's not a lot of difference between a Tucker Kraft and a Tyler Warren, or a Dalton Kincaid and a Dallas Goedert. Honestly, you could probably convince me on this is the year for Kyle Pitts again, and just call it a day. But if we're being Njoku seems to always produce and just constantly gets overlooked, and we're always talking about him in waiver wires later. Maybe we get ahead of it and go with Njoku here.
Yeah, I was going to lean going Njoku here. So if you agree with it, it's my final say. I was going to try to convince you that way. We're good.
All right. Njoku is on the clock. I'm going to scroll the screen if you were watching. So we see that. Oh, this is getting real ugly. Josh Downs went next, Tyler Warren, Michael Pittman, and then another quarterback run, which I think we both bypassed quarterback because the next three teams had one, and we didn't think they would go a second. But Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, Caleb Williams. So are we going to?
I almost said if Njoku wasn't in the last round, why don't we just throw it against the wall and stack Jake Ferguson and Dak Prescott? But you can still take Dak Prescott.
I could take Dak Prescott. I mean, but CJ Stroud is still there. I mean, Tua is still there. Matt Stafford's still there. Bryce Young's still there. This is like the point where it's like, am I okay just completely punting on the quarterback position? Who do we got?
I personally think Dak and Stroud have more upside, so I would prefer to have one of those two. But if they both happen to go, then I'd be like, take Stafford or take whoever's a good week one matchup and hope or something.
Yeah, and that is something as you get later in here. I'm also just clicking through because we have what? I got to look at our whole team. Sorry for the people watching and jumping around. We have 5 wide receivers, 3 running backs. So like it would be if I wanted to go with another running back here. I've been talking up Tank Bigsby as a guy I really like, so I could see that strategy paying off. If I think the other 2 quarterbacks would get back here. J.K. Dobbins in Denver is an intriguing name after he had his bounce back last season as well. But I think we should take our quarterback here, and it's really Stroud versus Dak Prescott for me. And I'll go Dak. I've been talking about Dak more. As much as I kind of want to play the game and not take him to hope he'd fall to me in my actual pick, I'm not like that. We'll continue this quarterback run and take Dak Prescott for the Couch GM's team.
Okay. I like it. I think that locks us up with somebody who's going to be serviceable, especially taking him in round 10 in a 12-teamer. I think we did okay.
Yeah, I think we did fine too. I like that pick a lot. Kincaid went next, Darnell Mooney, Jake Ferguson, and now I am on the clock. I was hoping Jordan Love would be here, and then I could just went back-to-back homer picks. I still could with Tucker Kraft at the top of the board, but I am also going to go here and get my quarterback in CJ Stroud.
And I think that's the end of the tier. That was a good move.
Rico Dottle went next, and George is on the clock.
Yeah, I get to go home now. Do I, though? I don't know. I'm debating because I have picked one Saquon Barkley. I need a tight end. I think my favorite tight end left on the board is Dallas Goedert. And, like, because I have reasons that think that he performed pretty much every week he was in the lineup. At least 10 points majority of the time he was in the lineup last year, but injuries hit him. He was on the list 2 separate times. Tucker Kraft was better without the other tight end in that offense. Once he came back, it was bad. Kyle Pitts' snap percentage actually went down when they changed quarterbacks. And then you got a rookie and you got middling Pat Freiermuth. Which is why I'm thinking, like, do I just go Dallas Goedert? Not that I love having 2 separate position players in the Eagles offense in my lineup.
Yeah, I mean, my only counterment would be that I'm a believer in Tucker Kraft. But if you like Goddard more, I think it's marginal on their difference on terms of upside.
Yeah. Or do I let the fates decide and go best available? Best available is not a whole lot either.
Right. I would say the best is Rachaad White, Tank Bigsby, the guys we were talking about last round too. So you get one of them a round later, but that's kind of where we're at. So you got to make a pick. He doesn't want to.
I'll go Dallas Goedert, and we'll see what comes around to me.
Homer. Drake May goes next, followed by Rachaad White to round out round 10. And then Tucker Kraft kicks off round 11, followed by Tank Bigsby. And George, you are on the clock.
All right. I'm still looking at the fact that I have 4 wide receivers. Tyreek Hill, Zay Flowers, Tet McMillan, Ricky Pearsall. Do I want to pair my sketchy wide receiver room with another dart throw possibility? Maybe. If that's the case, there's a couple rookie wide receivers coming up again here. Emeka Egbuka, Luther Burden, Jay Higgins. Jawan Jennings is almost a dart throw, but I would already have Ricky Pearsall, so that's a no for me. I think Keon Coleman is another interesting person, but I almost question if he's going to be wide receiver 1 in that offense. He had every opportunity last year and didn't do it, but you can also argue rookie wide receiver could break out in year 2. A lot to think about.
Yeah, definitely a lot to think about here. There are some interesting names, but we're in round 11 or 12, so you're not going to find a home run here. You're taking your late round flyer, your high upside, and that's kind of where we are in this moment. So it's really, the choice is yours, my friend. The Keon Coleman one is interesting for sure. It was a guy I was thinking about if he makes the fall to me. I'll be honest about that. You know, because the Bills, they didn't bring back Amari Cooper. They did extend Khalil Shakur, but all their wide receiver addition was adding Joshua Palmer. So, I mean, that might signal that there's some signs that they like Keon Coleman, and there's not, much better quarterback than Josh Allen to have someone throwing the ball to.
And just looking at depth chart, I mean, on top of the fact that the Bills have that high-powered offense, Keon Coleman pretty much locked in as the wide receiver 2 behind Khalil Shakur. There's a chance Jawan Jennings is a 2/3, but like I said, I'm not taking him because McMillan and Egbuka both here are probably going to be 3/4 once Godwin's back. They have a chance to be 2/3, but so I think like depth chart position is leaning towards taking Keon Coleman. So I'll take the flyer on him here.
All right. I should not have opened my mouth because that was the guy I was hoping for. But I'll make my pick quick. As much as I want to buy into this
McMillan between us, by the way.
Yeah, Jalen McMillan went next. I'm going to take a rookie wide receiver here. And I'm going to take Jaden Higgins, the projected number 2 wide receiver for the Houston Texans. This is not really a stackable thing because I just took CJ Stroud. They probably won't see the lineup, but hey, if it breaks out and works, it works. We'll call that the kicker for what gave him the edge over a guy like Luther Burden and Emeka Egbuka.
Nice. After you went Cam Scattaboo, Luther Burden, and Jawan Jennings back to the Couch GM's team, now that we have our complete lineup build, we can go wherever we want to.
Yeah, and there's a lot of interesting places to go here. I guess technically looking at this, Christian Kirk might be considered the number 2 wide receiver, but I view him more as the slack guy and Jaden Higgins as the number 2. And that's obviously with Tank Dell missing the season with his injury from last year.
Yep.
But at the top of the board, rookie wide receiver Trey Harris, if you wanted to go in that direction, would be an interesting name. But we have 5 wide receivers already, but we only have 3 running backs. So I'm kind of like looking at the running back situation. Maybe it is a J.K. Dobbins, a solid guy when healthy. Maybe we take Isaac Garendo to be the handcuff to Christian McCaffrey at this point. So I think for me, it's between the kind of reliable J.K. Dobbins or the handcuff in Isaac Guerrero?
I feel like with how we have our team built, we need to lock up a backfield just to protect ourselves. And we've seen Guerrero can be good with McCaffrey out. So I'm leaning Guerrero.
Cool. I think I'm with you on that one. Is this, I don't know whose official
This is
pick
mine. I'm take Guerrero. We're good.
Okay. Cool. I gotta get myself situated here. Isaac Guerrero, and some people will say this is a little bit of a reach, but to get your handcuff, I don't think it's a reach at all.
No. And then between on the turn here, we had Kyle Pitts, Christian Kirk. The turn was Harris and Loveland, Abuka, and Rashid Shaheed. Back to the Couch Jams team. This one's Cody's pick.
All right, this is our pick, and we're early in the season, so this is Ultimate Flyer. What are your thoughts on taking a second quarterback here?
Okay.
Because we went quarterback so late, and taking the guy that I do not really like. Do you take the running back, the running quarterback's a cheat code in Justin Fields and just see what happens in like the first 2 weeks if it's successful? Do you take the flyer on Cam Ward, the rookie? Those are the two guys. Like if we want to take a flyer on a second quarterback that we might end up cutting, Justin Fields or Cam Ward is kind of where I'm thinking. Because I'm pretty confident in our wide receivers and our running backs at this point. I mean, I could always be talked into another wide receiver if I wanted to take a Marvin Mims in Denver. I could be talked into that. But for me, I'm kind of leading Justin Fields or potentially Cam Ward just because we have Calvin Ridley, if we want to call that a kicker, in case something becomes of that.
No, I'm thinking I like the second quarterback when you take a quarterback so late. I normally do that in my drafts. I don't take two quarterbacks unless I take a late quarterback. And I like taking Justin Fields for the rushing upside so we have a shot to see first what the Jets want to do with him. And then we will play the waiver game. If Fields in week one even doesn't look too great, but Cam Ward, Matt Stafford, heck, someone like that, Tua, does really well, then we play the waiver game quickly. Or we just are taking our waiver claim here first in 12th round.
Yeah. Let's go Justin Fields.
Cool. J.J. McCarthy went next, then Trevor Lawrence for that little quarterback run, and then Pat Freiermuth to Cody's last pick, 12-8.
Yeah, and my team is on the board here. Tua, Cam Ward, Matt Stafford, Bryce Young, like George mentioned, they're all in a kind of a similar tier. I'm okay waiting on those guys. Typically, I like to go younger, higher upside guys. So Jaden Blue, the rookie running back for the Dallas Cowboys, if I think he has a chance to succeed, Javonte Williams, I might go. And that's kind of where I would be leaning here in June because we don't really know. If we had more clarity, I might also consider J.K. Dobbins as his 1 year deal in Denver. But just because I like taking the young guys, as much as I love Bayshall Tootin, I'm going to go Jadon Blue here, I believe, as I'm waiting slowly to pick this. Nope, I'm going to go J.K. Dobbins. That was the guy. I'm going to pick J.K. Dobbins and just kind of get a veteran on my team and see what happens.
See, I was thinking J.K. Dobbins there, so that makes me have to deflect a little bit. Zach Ertz went between our picks, 12-9. Now I'm questioning, do I take Jaden Blue and lock up probably the Dallas backfield, which does not sound exciting. And if it's any indication what they did last year, I'm not going to want either of them. So it makes me not want to do it.
Hey, Rico Dowdle has some nice games.
At the end of the year, I guess.
And at least you would be locked. You'd get both options week one, and could kind of play from there. Like, and none of them would be in your starting lineup week one, barring everyone being healthy. If the season was this Sunday or next week,
It's fair. Hey, take a flyer round 12. We'll see if we can lock up the Dallas backfield. Jaden Blue, and we're gonna wrap up the draft with Hollywood Brown and Austin Eckler.
Yes, we are. All right. So real quick, I know we're a little bit longer than usual this week, but hey, there's no episode next week. Reminder. So enjoy this little bit of a longer episode. Went long because we had the impromptu. We're drafting a third team. Had to talk through that, but that was a fun experiment to do a head-to-head, also cumulative. Looking at these rosters, just to recap, my team is Jahmyr Gibbs, Ladd McConkey, Kyren Williams, Cortland Sutton, George Pickens, Aaron Jones, Mark Andrews, Caleb Johnson, Matthew Golden, CJ Stroud, Jaden Higgins, J.K. Dobbins. That was from the 5 spot. Georgia's team is Saquon Barkley, Tyreek Hill, Jonathan Taylor, Zay Flowers, Chuba Hubbard, Tet McMillan, Patrick Mahomes, Ricky Pearsall, Javonte Williams, Dallas Goedert, Keon Coleman, and Jaden Blue from the 3 spot. And then our team together is Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Marvin Harrison, Devontae Adams, David Montgomery, Jordan Addison, Calvin Ridley, Debo Samuel, David Njoku, Dak Prescott, Isaiah Garendo, Justin Fields. I'll let you talk about it, but I personally think the Couch GM's team is better than both of our teams, but maybe that's just a little bit of bias. So what are your thoughts on the Couch GM's team, or is there any other teams you want to talk about on this big board?
I think the Couch GM's team is better than both of our teams as well. I just think it was very balanced. Even though we waited till round 3, we got some consistent wide receivers and some guys that still have some upside. I still do like the top of my team. Barkley, Hill, Taylor is going to carry me, and I just need some guys to hit every week. But I think I have enough very high upside options that I'm going to be fine. And for your team, you have your darts at wide receiver, but I think this might be the weakest wide receiver team I've seen you draft ever. But I think that also could be because I'm not sold on Sutton or Pickens.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, typically I'm like team 6. I'm going CeeDee Lamb, Drake London, T. Higgins, Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts, and I'm figuring out my starting running back is Isaiah Pacheco, Ramondre Stevenson. Team 6 is typically Cody. Let's be honest.
And somehow you figure out by waiver wire, by your late hit picks hitting, how to play running back. You're not beating people with running back. You're just trying to keep pace.
Exactly. So yeah, the Sutton, Pickens pick, I know maybe you'd feel a little bit better about it if I went Zay Flowers over Sutton. And maybe if I went, Devonta Smith over George Pickens. But that's the game deliver tell. The only other team I wanted to mention as well, team 1, picking from the 1 spot, although I would have taken Jamar Chase still. I don't mind Justin Jefferson. But they did the interesting thing where they take the tight end and quarterback, both in the top 5. But I think they salvage, I'll use that word lightly, their team by still pulling out Tony Pollard, who I think is underrated. They got Najee Harris as a handcuff for Omarion Hampton, so they get to figure out which one to start. So running back is their weaker point for sure. But then getting guys like Cooper Kupp and Jaden Reed could balance them out as well. And if Eckler has a good season like he did last year at the end of round 12 to kind of balance it out, that's a good spot. So I think team 1 did good, but I tend to like the Couch GM's team a lot. Maybe, again, that's biased. And that's more typically where we like to draft is in the later of round 1, because you can get those double ups like a Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey.
Just to show how not all these mock draft teams would ever happen in real life. Like team 8 has 2 running backs on their whole roster, and they were drafted in round 8 and round 9. It was Andre Swift and Tajay Spears. That wouldn't happen in real life, or if it did, somebody's got a problem. I really, in the middle of the draft, was going to applaud team 2 for pulling off an amazing 0 running back strategy. And instead, I think they absolutely, emptied their wide receiver room because they went too far. Chase and McLaurin are going to be fine. They went Josh Allen early. They ended up taking both Seattle running backs, both Jacksonville running backs, and then Tyrone Tracy and Quinshon Judkins. If they would have taken a mid-round wide receiver in there instead of one of those guys, I don't think you need Zach Charbonnet. If they would have taken a receiver there instead, I think their team would have been even better in my eyes. concerned about only being 2 wide receivers deep. Other than that, I think they salvaged a decent running back room.
Yeah, I think team 2 is interesting, but like looking at it too, like I wonder if like Tet McMillan was would be in play, but you took him 1 round, before that. Same with like a Ricky Pearsall over a Zach Charbonnet. You took him 1 pick before that. Maybe they should have still went like a Cooper Kupp or a Jaden Reed instead of Charbonnet. Yeah. But like you don't see these in a lot of leagues, but if you're in a very active league, you could see teams like this that go in with the mindset, I'm going to draft a bunch at one position and then try to trade those assets later down the line, which isn't a bad strategy if you're in an active league. If you're the only person that wants to make a trade, well, then that strategy is not the best because you'll be stuck with the guys that you were hoping to trade down the line. But George, I think that wraps up our first and one of a kind mock draft, head to head with ourselves. But it was a fun exercise as well. But as a reminder, like George mentioned at the top of the show, and thank you if you made it all the way out, we will not be here next week. It is 4th of July week, so hopefully you have a good, safe 4th of July. Get to enjoy the outdoors, do something fun. We'll be back the following week, kicking off our top 100 fantasy players. A lot of good content. The NFL season will be right around the corner. Don't miss it. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you follow us on social media at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, TikTok. Drop a comment. Who had the best draft? And we'll talk to you all in 2 weeks. I'm Cody Roadcap. That's George Kurth. We'll see you then.